This is Annuity Straight Talk. Since 2008, your host, Brian Anderson, has helped clients nationwide navigate the complex market for annuities. With Brian's assistance, hundreds of clients have achieved a profitable and secure retirement. I would know, because Brian has answered many of my questions concerning annuities and retirement planning. So that you can benefit as well, let's get started. Here's Brian.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Annuity Straight Talk podcast, episode number 81. I'm filming on location in northern Arizona. By the time you guys see this, I'll be in southern Arizona, going to visit a friend of mine right now that needs some visitors. Not doing too well, and I love the guy. He's been a great friend to me, and figured I'd get out of Montana and do some sunshine. Pulled the camper down. Not the best backdrop. It's not very warm here in northern Arizona, so hopefully the other podcasts I do on the road, I'll get you a little bit better backdrop. I would love to have like one of the big saguaro cactuses, but we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. Play it by ear. Episode 81, something I want to do for a few weeks. Needs to be said. It should have been covered a long time ago. BS Annuity Illustrations. Numbers that look like a total load of bull. This is episode number 81. I'm going to share my screen and show you one of these illustrations. I ran into it a few weeks ago. I've seen it hundreds of times. And it's just, you guys have to remember before you get started, an annuity is a safe asset. You get to protection in exchange for some yield. You're not going to get top line yield because you're taking the protection side, right? There's a lot of annuity illustrations, a lot of guys, and I use annuities and I can illustrate big numbers, but sometimes you look at those things, it just defies logic, all right? I usually use conservative numbers. We talk about the benefits of using annuities, the strategies we're going to employ with the annuity, and we like to shoot for reasonable yield. So if I set it kind of like a conservative yield, if you exceed expectations, you're going to be happy. But if you go into it thinking that contract, hey man, that thing's illustrating 10, 12%, if it doesn't happen, then you're going to be unhappy. So I know that a lot of other agents will lead with those illustrations. I, however, do not. Sometimes I'll look at them anyway. I'll look at them and say, like, hey, look at all the potential. It's nice to know that you do have that top line potential, but it's definitely not. I don't send it home with people, essentially. So, I had a conversation with a guy a few weeks ago. Quick meeting. Only talked to him once. Exchanged a couple emails. He said, "What do you think of this product?" Not one I run into a whole lot. It's an Allianz contract. Of course, I picked on them all the time. I'm going to do it again. But there's enough companies. There's a lot of other companies that do this too. And not just about every annuity out there, everyone I've seen. Some of the biggest companies you'll see, like Silac, puke. It's garbage. I'm not going to sell it. It seems like sold by guys are like, we sell a lot of annuities. Oh yeah, wait till that thing goes upside down. Look up Conseco, the insurance company. The guy that ran that into the ground is running that new company. Anyway, that's out at the top of this podcast. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. You see these giant numbers. High flying index returns, right? So I'm looking at my newsletter here. You guys can go read it. There's going to be a little more detail. It's going to be easier. So in this one, my first concern in this illustration is that the advisor, whoever showed this to him, told him to put all his money into it. I think if you come right out of the gate and do that, then it kind of invalidates every other recommendation you might make. Okay, like if somebody lies to you or steals from you, you don't trust them ever again. Doesn't matter how many times they don't lie or steal from you. You're always going to have that in the back of your mind. But anyway, it's your choice who you work with. I do know people, I have some clients that have most of, or maybe even all of their money in annuities. That's a choice they make and a plan that they developed over years. It's not something I proposed or told them, hey, this is how you got to do it, right? You start with something sensible, either to meet a need or to hit a goal. And then you if you like it, you can always buy more. And that's what a lot of people have done. but it's not where you start, not for a first-time annuity buyer, right? Let's see. Okay, we're going to use the numbers. I'm going to share my screen. You all ready for this? Okay, so I pick on Allianz all the time. That's just an easy target, man. They show some crazy stuff. All right. It's a big number. It doesn't matter if you got 50,000, 5 million. Numbers are the same. I'm just going to use what I got from the guy. I redacted personal information, so I'm not going to tell you where he is, who the advisor's name is on there. I don't know the guy. Never heard of him. Probably will never talk to him. But he sends out some crazy stuff. All right. So the first thing I see is a 1.6 million. Here you go. This is great. Bloomberg U.S. Dynamic Balance 2, excess return multi-year point to point with participation rate. 5-year. See that, guys? Right there. 5-year. Indexing option. Means it's a crediting option, a crediting period. You got to wait 5 years till you figure it out. He's got half of the money going in there. Let's see if that's obviously, and then he uses the Bloomberg. This contract also has S&P cap, which is typically like first-time buyers. To explain how the contract works, I like to use an index that everybody knows. Everybody knows the S&P 500. We're going to use that. Instead, you got the Bloomberg Dynamic, which is probably 3-4 years old. There's no back-tested performance. We don't know how it's going to turn out, okay? So he's got half of it in the 1 year, half of it in the 5 year. So a note on that, I've seen like 2-year options are riskier than 1-year options because you got better, longer run period, better chance for a decrease that's going to wipe out your gains, right? 3 years, even more risky. 5 years, I don't know if I'd ever do that. Maybe with like 10% of the money, a little bit. If you want that top side, because it's going to give you really healthy potential. But like sitting there half of your money, 5 years, that's a quarter of your retirement before you even know if you made any money. Ouch. So I don't necessarily like that, but whatever it is, we're going to use the numbers. Okay. So here's most recent 10 calendar year period. So I don't know the situation in the plan because, again, I talked to him once for 25 minutes. I don't know how this relates. We're going to look at it. 1,600,000 going in. Waits 5 years, takes 112,000 a year 10 times. After that, he lets it go. Look at that 5-year option there in year 5 hits 62.74. Wow, right? And then the second time it hit is 11.27. There's a big difference between those two. So one of them is about 12% year. The other one's about 2%. Which one do you want? Which one are you going to get? Maybe neither. Well, I'll bet you don't get either one. Higher or lower than either one of those. But there's a giant difference between those two. And they're going to roll that 10-year period over again. So every other 5-year period is going to have 65%, right? 67% in the 25th year. Anyway, what's crazy is you look at the bottom here. He put 1.6 in. It has like $18 million left when he's 92. So this illustration runs for 30 years, right? So he's total premium. He's out 480,000 because he took out 1,120,000. Okay. So 480 of his original money, and there's $18 million. Wow. That's crazy numbers, right? 60%, absolutely nuts. If it happens, great. It's not going to happen like that. I mean, that's right. That's huge. The 65% in this illustration, he gets it 6 times, right? 30 years, every other, he gets it, when is it? 1, 2, he gets it 3 times. But anyway, I mean, right here, like 67% on half of, 8 million, I guess. That's a giant return, He goes from 8 to 3, makes $5 million in 1 year. No way. Right? Believe it if you want to. Okay. So it's interesting. Some contracts, some insurance companies will post the rates. It'll say, here's your internal rate of return. And if they don't, and this one doesn't, then you got to work with somebody who knows how to calculate it. Now, I've been doing this since I was in college because I took finance. I had a finance degree. We used to have to do it longhand. Now I've got tables or I've got calculators. So this is a calculator, right? 1.6 million in, 112,000 annual payments, 10 annual payments starting in 5 years, 2028, 18,198 bucks, right? Insane. So you figure that, and then we solve for the rate, and it turns out to the effective yield. So the nominal is 9.329. That's a monthly compounding. It's just how the rate works. We could do annual. It actually is an annual compounding, so it's probably, but we'll say 9.739. Okay. All right, not way out there, but the numbers just, and it's also like you've got a long credit, you've got 30 years that you're looking at it. So it's, compound interest. It's an exponential curve. It's a 30-year deal. 9.7%, pretty impressive, right? Okay. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about, well, here you go. No, I didn't do this in the newsletter, but we're going to have to look at this, right? Here's the guaranteed minimum. So that's what you first want to do. What's the top side? What's the guaranteed minimum? All right. And a lot of these guys that say index annuities, now the base index annuity cannot lose money, but I talked to a pretty astute guy yesterday who understands that there's some fees on it that if it doesn't perform and there's a fee, it can lose money. So a lot of these can lose money. This is one of those that can, and I'll get into it. Okay. Guaranteed values. Zero index interest in a fixed allocation earns a minimum annual fixed rate of 0.1% in all years. Accumulation value reflects the maximum allocation charge. I'm coming to that. As shown in your illustration assumptions. Okay, so the same thing, 1.6 million in, 112 out. After 30 years, this is the minimum rate, right? 480 net, so he lost $235,000 in that contract. So 245 left on the guaranteed minimum. That's a cost, and that's a big, big deal, okay? How I wrap this up is going to relate to that. So your guaranteed minimum, so what I say, 245,000 versus 18 million. Take the average, right? Average puts you at 9 million. Still not bad, but it ain't going to be 9%. That's going to be more about 5, right? Oh, okay, well, then maybe that's your expectation. Okay, so the next big deal, and I skipped over this when I talked, far right over here, 2.5% maximum allocation charge. So on certain indexes, including these ones shown, so it's 0%, but they can arbitrarily put it up to as high as 2.5%. And I'm going to tell you why that makes a difference. It's an extra lever the company has to pull. And so you're giving them more control. Most people don't like the fact that the rates will adjust, and they do. After crediting periods, they declare new rates. The good companies, a solid contract that's priced well, is you don't see rates fluctuate a whole lot. I've got contracts that are 7, 8, 9 years old where we've had very minimal changes over time. I don't do business with Allianz. I'm not really sure. I do have a couple of people that share their statements with me. I've seen reductions, but most of those are maybe only a few years old, so we don't know what the real long term is. But people don't like that they can adjust rates, right? These guys can adjust rates, and they can also slap a charge on it, okay? So that guaranteed minimum takes into account the charge, and on the baseline, that costs $235,000 in the guaranteed minimum scenario. 2.5%. It's going to be even more in the maximum scenario, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this one, the $18 million, right? And I'm going to pull my amortization schedule up again. So we had 9.739. I'm going to stick with effective, but this is actually is nominal because it's only credited once per year. This assumes monthly compounding, and that's not how the annuity works. I'll fix that other stuff, but I just want to let everybody know now. So what we do is, let's see what happens when we change the rate. Okay, what if it doesn't get 9.739? What if it gets 9? Let's just do 9, okay? So we change that rate, and then we solve for the remainder. Holy cow. It went from 18.1 million to 14.4. It's almost $4 million reduction in the total outcome at the end by just a 0.7% adjustment to the yield. Okay. Let's say 8%, which would be a fantastic outcome, right? 8% goes down to 10.5 million. Still a great outcome. But you see, the problem is, like, that's where I'd shoot. I'd sit there and I'd probably try to find a way to illustrate 5 or 6%. So 6%. And that's your what I would consider your top line outcome right there. Okay. So 5.4 million left at a 6% effective yield. And then you look at those numbers and say, hey, this is cool. There's more potential. We'll get it. But you don't static illustrate that from the beginning, because you got to know you make it work on something realistic. I mean, these things are built to do 5-6%, period. And I don't like that extra pricing lever of the allocation charge, because if you do, this thing could easily turn out to be 3-4%. What if you get 5% performance, but they slap an allocation charge on it down the road? Makes a big difference, right? I don't like those levers. So take it for what it's worth. I think this illustration is total baloney, and that's why I'm talking about it. It's worth the podcast, right? And this is not the only one. So Allianz, good, strong company, right? They're very popular. Guys like selling them. I just love it. Like, oh yeah, this is all I sell. Oh, really? Okay, so this is, so I guess, like, I mean, I wouldn't say this is a terrible contract, but there's too much variability in it, and I do not trust, like, that top line figure. You got to look at the likelihood of that happening, and the likelihood of it is very low, maybe non-existent. Okay. So you look at the 5 to 6% projection, maybe 7. It just depends. It takes the market's got to perform. The index has to perform. And in this case, we got 3 or 4 years of real performance on that one. We don't even know. So if we use this S&P 500 on their cap rate, you're probably going to end up with a 5 to 6% yield, right? Anyway, so this is undoubtedly where someone's going to say, well, don't tell it. Like, everybody's like, well, I know you like to tell us what doesn't work. Why don't you tell us what does work? Okay. My top companies for accumulation contracts. All right. And I like it when you send me stuff, because if you give me something that's really good, I promise I will probably change what I'm doing if there's a material reason to do so. Okay. I know how to look at the pricing of it. I know how to look at the cap rates and tell you what's realistic and what's a teaser, what's out there. This is a teaser contract because they're dangling out that big number. That's all it is, right? Top companies in this order: Midland National, Mass Mutual, Ascend. Great company. They were formerly Great American. But a lot of happy people with those contracts. And Athene. I don't really love working with Athene, but they've got some decent products, and I think they're fairly competitive. I did have somebody just choose an Athene, and I have no problem with that contract. I ran the same scenario with each of those carriers. So this is the thing. I know, and probably everybody else does, I know what allocation is going to produce the biggest results. I'm responsible by explaining all the other ways that it could work out. And we don't touch that until we know that it works out at a really reasonable level, right? I ran the same assumptions through the top indexes and the other contracts. The remainder in Allianz was 18 million. Midland National's remainder was 27 million. Athene's remainder was 26 million. And Great Americans or Mass Mutual Ascend, sorry, I still call them Great American. I think it was 21 million. So we can shoot pie in the sky numbers all day long, and I could certainly do it as well, but that's not how I do business. And that's why I'm calling bullshit on this one, because that's not at all what we're going to do. And I'm never going to present a Midland contract to this guy saying, oh, it's 27 million. Now the guy's not, I don't even know if he's going to buy an annuity. Usually this kind of turns people off when you got some idiot that's slinging numbers. Oh, look at this. Dig into it a little bit. That's what I showed you, right? You got allocation charge. You got a 5-year reset. You got an unproven index. Yeah. Good luck. Anyhow, so there's a lot of different options for doing it. And I'm going to so all those other 3 companies beat it, right? None of them have mandatory allocation charges. All of them have optional allocation charges. And Allianz, they say only some indexes. I think it's a lot of their indexes where they have that. But I don't like a company being able to just change it, right? And if you could if you can get something similar, like every other component in this contract that's not the Bloomberg index and that allocation charge is nearly identical on all the other contracts, but doesn't have that BS. Why wouldn't you do that if you can get one without it? So there we are. If it's not disclaimed appropriately, then that's a very irresponsible action by any advisor. So I see this all the time. Gives me an opportunity to educate you guys, tell you what you're looking at, help you kind of figure out how to analyze these things, because not everybody's going to work with me, right? And that's fine. I don't have time for everyone. And not everybody even likes me, I mean, maybe I'm not a very likable guy. So anyway, this has been episode 81 of the podcast, BS Annuity Illustrations. It's garbage, and there's a bunch of scumbags out there doing it, and it's they're stupid, right? I'm sorry, but I've been doing this long enough. I don't have to be nice about it. You give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're just stupid. Maybe they're not dishonest, they're dumb, all right? And when you're looking for quality financial advice, do not seek advice from a dumb person. There it is. There's my hit for the day. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform or on YouTube if you like to watch the videos. Like, share, comment, let everybody know, subscribe if you want to get notified when it comes out. These all get released on Thursday. I sent them out to my email list on Saturday. I will be in Tucson, Arizona next week, and I'm really looking forward to a little bit of sunshine, seeing a good buddy, and I get to meet up a couple of clients. And I'm sorry to anybody that I'm not going to get to see. I had planned on doing a 2-month trip and hitting a couple other states, but just things the way they are, life happens. I didn't have the time to do it. So anyway, I'm here. I'll be back for episode 82 next week. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
You have been listening to Annuity Straight Talk. The preceding information is for informational and educational purposes only and does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. The views expressed by guests on this program are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Annuity Straight Talk or its partners. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the insurance company.